Hey, what's happening YouTube? So today I want to talk about serfs. With our world dominated by COVID-19 for the last year, we've seen the introduction of mandatory mask wearing in many places such as supermarkets and hospitals. Many of us have heard mask wearers called sheep. We may have called them sheep ourselves, but I'm sure we've seen the memes like this. They allude to slavery and masks. This is where the idea of serf came to mind. But what is a serf and what does it mean? Well, medieval serfs or villains were unfree labourers who worked the land of the landowner in return for physical and legal protection, plus the right to work a separate piece of land for their basic needs. Serfs made up 75% of the population. They weren't slaves, as only their labour could be bought. They were subject to certain fees and restriction of movement, though. The idea of different social levels on a single estate for mutual benefit dates back to the Roman times. Countryside villas produced foodstuffs for their surrounding land, and when the Roman Empire declined, foreign raids became more common. So living together had a distinct advantage. The peasantry lived on the land, and in return for their labour, they were either free or unfree, the latter being serfs. Serfdom was the status of many peasants under feudalism. It was a condition of debt bondage and indentured servitude, both similar and different to slavery. Now, here we see an indenture signed in 1738 by Henry Mayer, who signed it with an X. Abraham Hestant had paid for Mayer to travel from Europe to Pennsylvania, USA. So indentured servitude is a form of labour in which a person, an indenture, agrees to work without salary for a specific number of years for eventual compensation or debt repayment. Historically, it was used to pay for apprenticeships. So typically, apprentices agreed to work for free for a master tradesman to learn a trade. It was later used as a way for a person to pay the cost of transportation to colonies in the Americas. Unlike slaves, serfs could not be bought, sold, or traded individually, though they could, depending on the area, be sold together with the land. But here we see the kolops in Russia and villeins in Gross in England, in contrast, could be traded like regular slaves. So the word serf originated from the Middle French serf and was derived from the Latin servus, slave. So this is where I'm making obviously comparisons in using serf instead of sheep. But in late antiquity, most of the Middle Ages, what are now called serfs were usually designated in Latin as coloni. As slavery gradually disappeared and the legal status of servi became nearly identical to that of the colony, the term changed meaning in the modern concept of serf. The word serf is first recorded in English in the late 15th century and came to its current definition in the 17th century. Serfdom was coined in 1850. So slavery and enslavement are both the state and condition of being a slave, who is someone forbidden to quit their service for another person while treated as property. Some are comparing the masks worn now to masks worn by slaves. And you can see where they're coming from, but we're going to read now and we'll see. This is an article written about the mask remembering slavery by a writer and psychologist from West African islands. She says, there was a mask from which I heard many times during my childhood. The many recountings and the detailed descriptions seemed to warn me that those were not simple facts of the past, but living memories buried in our psyche, ready to be told. Today I want to retell them. I want to speak about the brutal mask of speechlessness. This mask was a very concrete piece. A real instrument became part of the European colonial project for for than 300 years. It was composed of a bit placed inside the mouth of the black subject, clamped between the tongue and the jaw, fixed behind the head, 2 strings. One surrounded the chin, second surrounded the nose and the forehead. The mask was used by white masters to prevent enslaved Africans from eating sugar cane or cocoa beans while working on plantations, but its primary function was to implement a sense of speechlessness and fear, inasmuch as the mouth was at the same time a place of muteness and a place of torture. So again, you can see, I guess, where the comparisons come from there with the sense of speechlessness and the fear, because, you know, for some people, seeing people wear masks and, you know, basically faceless people is quite scary to some people. But the mask represents, in this sense, colonialism as a whole, symbolises the white sadistic politics of conquest, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into that because there's a whole debate for something else. The point being that, you know, this mask, the slavery mask, is obviously more of a severe thing than the masks that we've been asked to wear. But again, I'm not saying that makes it right. We should have to wear them. But yeah, as they're saying here, the mouth is a very special organ symbolising speech and enunciation. Within racism, it becomes the organ of oppression par excellence. It represents the organ whites want and need to control, and therefore the organ which historically has been severely confined. The mouth is also a metaphor to possession. It's fantasized the black subject wants to possess something which belongs to the white master, the fruits. She or he wants to eat them, to devour them, dispossessing the master from its goods. Although the plantation and its fruits do morally belong to the colonizer interpret it perversely, reading it as a sign of robbery. We are taking what is theirs becomes they're taking what is ours. We're dealing here with a process of denial, for the master denies its project of colonization and asserts it onto the colonized. It is this moment of asserting onto the other what the subject refuses to recognise in her himself, which characterises this ego defence mechanism. In racism, denial is used to maintain and to legitimate violent structures of racial exclusion. They wanted to take what is ours, therefore they have to be excluded. So this is where I see, really, rather than a sign of slavery, I think it's more of an occult submission, an act of submission, because masks have traditionally played an important role in occult rituals, and in a world of symbolism and programming, the masses are being taught to collectively show their willful submission. Masking has played a very important role in occult rituals. Historically, wearing of the mask over one's mouth is a token of submission, a gesture of your willingness to be subject to others who are not your usual sovereign. In other words, the wearing of a mask represents an occult transformation from one role to another, from one manner of being to another. Indeed, in this case, from individual sovereign to collective subject under the transhumanist dystopia. The entire point of occult ritual mask wearing is to hammer home to your subconscious until it becomes completely true in your daily life, the idea that things are no longer the same. Under the sway of the occult ritualist, you, being mouth masked, are no longer the person you used to be. You're suddenly demoted and reassigned to the position of obedient subject. And this kind of illustrates that, doesn't it, in the next part? Because we suffer a strong psychological tendency to see faces and facial features, in other ways random features around us. Our perceptual system shapes what we perceive and often fills in unclear scenes, revealing something that may not actually be there. Pareidolia refers to this common tendency to discern, for example, meaningful shapes in clouds. But why is it faces more than any other illusion? Our brains may be biased to detect faces because the error of missing a face in the undergrowth when it really is there but hiding could have cost you your tribe members their lives back in the day of routine raids in our ancestral environments. Perceptual filling in of the missing bits not visible may save your life. Evolutionary pressure explains why we are programmed to lock onto faces in our environment and to process the mental state of people around us by analysing their facial expressions. There is clear survival value in noticing from a frown that someone is getting angry with us, long before they throw a spear or dump us as lovers. So let's address why sheep aren't the mindless followers that people believe them to be. Sheep are frequently thought of as unintelligent animals. Their flocking behaviour and quickness to flee and panic can make shepherding a difficult endeavour for the uninitiated. Despite those perceptions, a University of Illinois monograph on sheep reported their intelligence to be just below that of pigs and on par with that of cattle. Sheep can recognise individual human faces and ovine faces and remember them for years. In addition to long-term facial recognition of individuals, sheep can also differentiate emotional states through facial characteristics. If worked with patiently, sheep may learn their names, and many sheep are trained to be led by halter for showing and other purposes. Sheep have also responded well to clicker training. Sheep have been used as pack animals. Tibetan nomads distribute baggage equally through a flock as it is herded between living sites. It's been reported that some sheep have apparently shown problem-solving abilities. A flock in West Yorkshire, England, allegedly found a way to get over cattle grids by rolling on their backs, although documentation of this has relied on anecdotal accounts. So from now on, let's refer to these people we call sheep as serfs. Eventually, even serfs revolted against the feudal barons. And hey, there is some hope here, look, for those unwilling to submit. If you've made it to the end, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It was just a bit to explain. I post this in comments sometimes about calling people serfs, and so hopefully this video may help to explain a little bit if you ever see that comment now. But yeah, so if you made it to the end, thank you very much for watching. Give me a like, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. But for now, till the next one, peace out.